Alright, I'm parked in a different location right now. I don't know. On my drive home, I was like, you know what? There's this massive parking lot right by a church. And I was like, you know what? It's on the way back from where I work at. I might as well just park here. Like the other place that I usually park at is it's just up the road from where I live. So it's much closer to where I live, but this is on the way back to home. So I was like, you know what? I'll just pull up here, record my video, and then just bounce. There was just one other car parked in this lot, and this is a pretty massive lot. Like, this is almost like a mall parking lot, but it's for a church. So, and when I pulled up, I was like, man, the aroma around me kind of smells like marijuana. Like, it kind of smells like somebody was really smoking that loud over here. But it was just one car down all the way over there. I seriously doubt that smell was coming from them, because if it was, that's crazy. Like, they were quite a ways down. But it also kind of smells like tobacco or a cigarette. I don't know. The smell is kind of still. I promise you, it's not me. It's not me. But it's kind of still here. I don't know where the smell is really coming from. But anyways, I worked today. I was kind of having and it wasn't really a particularly tough day, but it was still kind of a day that I was there, and I was like, man, if I'm gonna be completely honest with myself right now, I don't want to be here. And it wasn't so bad to the point where I was like, I can't do this. Like, I need to get the fuck up out of here. But it was still to the point where it was like, man, today is dragging, and it's just like I really just want out of this job. And the job per se is like, the job that I have isn't a bad job. It pays decently well for part time, and it just, if I'm gonna be just quite frank, like, quite frankly, it just doesn't really suit me, like, in terms of what I would aspire to be and who I aspire to become. I still deal with a lot of people, like, and I like dealing with people. I like being able to be there and be a powerful presence or whatnot. I want to be that, but in the sense of like how I'm doing it or how it's done in that field that I'm in, it's just not how I'd like to go about it, to be honest. I can only do so much that makes me feel right when I'm there, and then everything else is just like, oh yeah, I'm being reminded that this place is really just not it for me. And honestly, a lot of life can feel like that when you're doing things. Man, if you don't sit around, or even just if you're not like anywhere, you can be anywhere. If you don't ever stop to realize that this is a very bizarre experience, I don't know what else to like. I don't know how else to put it, but I very quite often find myself just sitting while I'm taking a shit, or like literally like while I'm standing in front of people or sitting around people in a group of people, and I'm just like, isn't this experience just so bizarre? Isn't this experience, like our existence or my existence, like everything that's happening around me, everybody's role, isn't it kind of bizarre, But it's not to say that it's bizarre enough for me to just be like, you know what, like, this should be different. This should be, something needs to change. Like, if something needed to have been changed, it would have changed by now. You know what I'm saying? Like, if something, like, I quite often think, like, I think the last video that I recorded, I kind of touched upon it, but I didn't dive too deep into it. But essentially this feeling of just kind of feeling like you're missing out of something. Like, if somebody else knows something, like, for example, right? Like, in the video that I recorded last night, I was talking about it in a way that where I was talking about when I was in college or when I was in high school even, I would just sit there, or I would just be around, and I'd be kind of like, damn, I'm missing out on something because everybody else kind of knows what they want to pursue in college and what career they want to go after or whatever. And I mean, some of them obviously, like, at that time I didn't realize it, but they were just doing it for the sake of doing it. I'm not really sure if they were so passionate about it. But I've known since I was a kid, like in high school, I just knew that whatever I was going to become, it was going to become something that I was passionate about. There was no way that I would settle for anything less. I just couldn't. I couldn't. Like, I'm not settling for anything less than what I know to be true for me, And I'm still working on that. Like, I genuinely still feel like I'm working on that. But nonetheless, like, it's just can get like, life is just so bizarre sometimes. And again, it's not to say that something needs to change, right? And that this is what I was gonna say actually. Like, let's say in my case, where I was feeling in the past, where I was in high school and I was in college, and I was looking at other people around me, and they all sort of had what I thought was to be like a good understanding of what was gonna come next, and what was gonna happen, by what time, what year they were gonna graduate. Everything seemed so certain. Everything seemed so like a path that was already carved out. They just had to continue following it, you know? And for me, it was just like, am I missing out on something? Like, is something wrong with me? No, there was never anything wrong with me. There was never anything I'm missing out on. In fact, if there was anything wrong with me, or if there was anything that I was missing out on, then I really do believe that my physical body, the earth itself, would explode, you know? Like, just this space-time continuum, it just wouldn't be existing if it didn't need a purpose, or if it didn't have a purpose to exist. Like, if something definitely just did not need a point to exist, then it wouldn't exist in the first place. It simply wouldn't. What would be the point? What would be the point of something happening if it didn't need to happen? You know, that maybe that's a very out there kind of thought, but literally the way that I think of it is, if I'm missing out on something right now that I really essentially need, then I'm going to explode, or I'm not needed here, you know? But clearly, in my way, if I'm going to look at it that way, clearly I am here for a purpose. I am needed here for a reason, because why else would I be? Like, if there wasn't no reason, if there was no purpose, then why do I exist? Well, like, that's just the kind of way that I think about it, you know? So, like, for instance, like, when it came to me dropping out of college and me not pursuing a degree, or pursuing like a system, or pursuing a structure that exists already, right? I'm thinking, okay, well, is that it for me? Clearly the fuck it is not. It can't be, you know? And that goes for anybody that is also feeling this way. Like, clearly we're here for a purpose. We're here to do something, and that something is going to show up in a plethora, like in an infinite amount of different ways, you know? I'm like pretty certain in the parking lot I am parked in right now that there could be a cop that could potentially pull up, because I've been in this parking lot like years ago. And I don't know if I was in my car or someone else's car, but like a cop definitely pulled up, because I mean, I'm assuming that they want to protect the church or something like that. But this is also like an open space to park, so it's like I'm sure that it's probably on the cops' radar to be like, is anybody smoking weed here or something like that? I don't know, but whatever. The point is, let me just make sure that this is still recording. I don't want to mess this up. Sorry, give me a few seconds. Yeah, we're still recording. All right. So, yeah, but honestly, it sucks, because that's just the grim reality of this existence. Like, there are moments where we really do feel like our existence is for no reason, like, you know, and those times will pass by. You know, those times will pass by, and I only know my mind as well as you know your own mind, you know? I'm sure that my mind, just like yours, at times it can get very complicated and tell you that this is not worth it, that it could be a lot easier if I were to just not exist, you know? But I strongly do believe in pushing through that and understanding that you are not your thoughts, you know? The other day, funnily enough, I was at my friend's house, and he had a THC cartridge. That's a silly way to say it. He had a cart, you know. He had a cart that it was a Muhammad cart. And it had been a while, like several months, since I've last taken a pull out of a cart. And, you know, he offered it to me. I took a pull out of it. And at first I didn't feel anything. It wasn't a strong enough pull for me to feel anything. I thought it was going to be enough for me to just feel something. But I didn't feel anything, so I was like, you know what, like an hour, like maybe like 30 minutes or so passed by, and it came back to me where he was like, you want to take another pull? And I was like, yeah, you know what, fuck it, let me see that thing, right? So I take a pull out of it, and then I start feeling this like burning sensation in my chest, and I'm just like, oh shit, like I'm definitely gonna feel it now. Like, I didn't feel this burning sensation on the first pull. The second pull though, it just fucking knocked me like a truck. Like, I could just tell, like, yeah, I wasn't coughing, but my throat or my chest, I just felt that burn, and I was like, yeah, that was the pull that was gonna do it. And it was the pull that fucking did it. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, okay, shit, I can feel it coming up. I can literally feel it coming. I feel the come up. I feel like me just preparing to get smacked. And I'm sitting there, and some thoughts had really hit me pretty hard, because the thoughts were related to some things that I was kind of like pushing to like the side of my mind, and I was like, forget about it, I don't want to think about it. Like, I was talking about it, but I wasn't really processing it too much, right? And so then when the moment came that I was on the come up getting smacked, the thoughts just, they arised, and they were related to what I was getting anxious about. And eventually, like a few minutes later, it kind of just like, I was like, it wasn't something that I did. It was just all just happening. I was really just observing it, And that's what it has to kind of boil down to when very, very dark, silly thoughts come up. Any kind of thought, when they come up, you kind of have to have this non-attachment to whatever thoughts come up, because those thoughts are really just coming out of, I mean, they're not coming out of nowhere. They're coming from something, but they're not you, Now, it's very difficult to explain this in words, or any description that anybody gives you in words related to a topic like this is going to be very difficult to explain unless you really have the experience yourself, But what I found really beautiful about the experience of me getting smacked was that essentially I was on this come up, I was having these anxious thoughts, and then eventually I just kind of gave in, and I was just like, well, honestly, there's not really much for me to do other than just close my eyes. So I closed my eyes, and it almost felt like when I had closed my eyes, there was this emission of just frequency. And when I had my eyes closed, it literally kind of looked like a frequency like line or something like that. But it was just colors, And I mean, it could have just been the colors that were coming from the TV light or something like that, because we were watching a UFC event. But whatever, the point is, my eyes were closed, and I was just kind of tuning out of my surroundings. I was just tuning out. And then a thought came up, but the thought couldn't help but just fall apart. Like, I literally saw I'm not saying like I literally saw it, but you kind of gotta catch my drift here, Like, the thought came up, and then it couldn't be helped but just fall. Sorry, I just spat. It couldn't help but just fall down. Like, and by fall down, I mean, like, it couldn't be helped but just, it was ignored. Like, the thought came up, and then, like, my consciousness or something just was like, get out of here. And then it was just literally just me kind of in a way, in this experience of just me being thoughtless. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm just feeling extremely aware of my own presence, of my own existence, without the need for some silly thought to come up. Because there was no need. Like, I could literally tell that my consciousness or my mind or whatever was like, get these thoughts out of here. That's not who we are right now. We're literally a presence right now. And it's not to say that I now am in a spot where I try to chase that. If anything, like, I can be mindful when I meditate, and then it's not as strong as it was when I was smacked. Because when I was smacked, man, like, those thoughts just literally couldn't help but just be like, okay, we got to get out of here. Like, we're clearly not being welcomed. And it's not to say like they were being disrespected or like kicked out or anything like that, but they literally just couldn't help but just fall. Like, they came up, and they were like, oh yeah, we don't really have any space here. Let's just move. And then it was just me being extremely just aware and present. So I really do recommend mindful practice. I know that was just a situation of me explaining how I was smacked. But don't believe I'm saying that me being smacked, that was like how it goes every time. These things are really kind of reflections. Like, you will reflect yourself during these times. So like when you sit down and you're being mindful, or when you sit down and you're being smacked, it will literally reflect who you are or how you are in those moments. So if you're having a bad trip, or you're having a bad high, or whatever, it literally is just a reflection of some of the stuff that you maybe haven't dealt with, or that you haven't confronted. And there's just so much of it that the entire journey that you're either smacked or high, or whatever word you want to use, it's just going to reflect back the trauma. It's just going to reflect back what you haven't fully expressed. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just want you to know that there's literally nothing wrong with that. Everything, think of life, or think of yourself as a snake shedding its skin. It's just going to happen. Or think of it as I think the even cooler one. I even have the book. If I could ever recommend a book in these videos, let me just show you. It would be this book. This book is by Ram Dass, and it's called Remember, Be Here Now. Yeah, Be Here Now. Be Here Now. This book right here is a fantastic book that I would literally recommend to just about anybody that wants to learn about some really cool stuff. But Be Here Now by Ram Dass is, I studied this book, not studied, but I definitely looked at this. Oh man, the book is kind of starting to tear a little bit. But I looked at that book so often, like about a year ago. I just couldn't like help myself but just look at the book, and specifically the brown pages of the book. I just like literally was going back and forth with those brown pages for a while. I haven't looked at the actual like pages in a little bit, but for a while I was just like I couldn't let go of the book. You know, I literally just couldn't let go of the book. So, I think that'll be it for this video. I've already yapped for like 15 minutes. I have notes in my notes app of like different ideas and things that I want to talk about. But even now, I just kind of took a look at it, took a glance of something, and I was like, oh man, I mean, I do have some good stuff in here, but I kind of want to just talk about whatever it is that comes up in the moment, you know? Which, you know, I'm not going to expect that every video that I record to be a banger or something like that, that I just drop something insane or something so helpful. I don't want to fall into that illusion, but I'm going to still come out here and record just for the sake of like just doing something that I enjoy to do. Just record myself just speaking and then just upload it publicly. I still record my own voice notes for my own voice memos for myself. But something about just recording it too is also kind of fun. I'm still going to do everything that I feel like I want to do, you know? But yeah, that's about it. Now go enjoy your life. And I really do mean that. That's it.